Thank you for Patreon now for donating to the Patreon.
Hey guys, Vin Diesel back in the Card Fight Vanguard deck profiles. You enjoyed the Tech Com Squad from South. This time we're covering Dark States, Drajeweled for set 7. Oh my god, I can't tell you how much I love Drajeweled set 7. It's honestly like super fun, even though this version of the deck feels a lot more tournament-ish. Like, I'm not gonna say it's ready for, like, I'm not saying you go to a tournament and you'll win with this. I'm saying that what I imagine how it feels to play in a tournament and how I feel playing in a tournament, that's how this deck makes me feel. Like a slight sense of uncomfortability and doesn't work with me, but it works out in the end. And honestly, I like it. So again, I say, not a tournament deck. It just makes me feel like a tournament deck. So, or at least how I imagine a tournament deck to feel like. So let's go into the start, shall we? And we'll see what vast differences we made from set 6, where only we had Botus, and now we have a whole fucking set of support. First up, we have our starter in Julius Draco Kid. Grade 0 boost, 5k shield, 6k power, auto wins road upon if you win second, draw a card. Standard starter, not special about it. You can run any starter in this deck, and none of the ride line requires this as your starter. But obviously, because you want the cool effect of being able to soul blast the whole ride line, you're going to run Julius Draco Kid as your starter. And look at him, he's so cool. He's smiling at you. He's doing his like little finger snap to get the flames. Look at him, he's just amazing. And I honestly like the starter. I think he's cool. He's definitely one of my favorite starters. So yeah, do whatever starter you want. Then we have our over trigger in Hades Dragon Deity of Resentment, Gale Drajeweled. Grade 0 boost, 50 shield, 5k power, over trigger mode, over trigger negative trigger, middle card, draw a card, choose one of your plus move for the turn. And if you're voted during draw tech, activation effect, which is during your fight, you get during your turn, all your vanguards are plus 10k and a crit until the end of this fight. Basically meaning the second you sack this over, you're going into overdrive as your opponent's going to have to struggle to guard against you because your vanguard's got to be at a constant plus 10 and a crit, meaning every vanguard attack after grade 3 most likely is going to have to be guarded with everything they got. And that's honestly really fun doing, especially when you're in this point of the deck. It's to drop them down to 1k power, or sorry, not 1k power, bring them down to 1, meaning your vanguard is probably going to be PG'd every single round. Honestly, I love Gale Drajeweled. It's one of my favorite over triggers, if not my favorite over trigger. Getting that plus 1 million is always a nice buff as well, and that 10k and double crit always makes the game more fun for me personally. I don't even mind going against Gale Drajeweled. It makes it a lot more interesting when I have to struggle. So one of Gale Drajeweled, sadly. And then we have our normal triggers. First up, we have 2 copies of Rouse Wild Master Riley, grade 0 boost, 5k shield, 4k base, draw Jinx's guard circle, opponent's vanguards are grade 3 plus 5k shield. Cool, 10k shield draw. I like the draw, it helps add some hand cards, and sometimes that's really helpful, especially because in this version of the deck, I am not going all draw heavy, or also charge heavy, so having those draws around is really nice. I have my 2 fronts in Huckle Hassle, grade 0 boost, 50k shield, 5k power. Okay, I run this for 2 reasons over Natalie. One, we all know I don't like running like archetypal cards and none of their archetypal decks. So the front trigger is obviously excluded for that reason. But then the other reason being, I have a lot better luck with sacking a front if Huckle Hassle's the front trigger. Not even joking with you, I sack Huckle Hassle almost every game. So yeah, 2 of Huckle Hassle, because I actually sack her more. If you want to put Natalie, go ahead, but like I said, it's the Diablos thing, and then I have more luck with Huckle. And then we have our 3 crits of Lively Buff Dragon, grade 0 boost, 15k shield, 5k power. And then we have 4 more crits in Steam Deviate Dragon, grade 0 boost, 15k power, 15k shield, 4k power. Critical trigger auto rate at the end about it boosted, put it to soul, choose remove plus 2 for the turn. Great, you know that free plus 2 doesn't really do much, but getting another grade 0 to soul, gotta admit, that was actually, it wasn't the first time, but it was one of the first few times that the shove to soul crits finally proved useful to me. After 3 sets of existing, they finally proved useful. So 4 of Steam Deviate, nice. I love sacking crits in this deck. 7 crits is very deadly. The 2 fronts always show up when I want them, and the draws somehow are the bane of my existence to the opponent. So yeah, 4 of the crits, or 7 crits in total. Then we have our 4 normal heals in Steam Scar on Male and Drajeweled. So grade 0 boost, 15k shield, 5k power. We all know I don't like the effect heals at this point. If you don't know why I don't like the effect heals, because in my opinion they're a little too situational. Bushy themselves are proving me right by literally putting in more cards that restand themselves. I say this because the second I started talking shit about it, and this could have been a coincidence, but the second I started talking shit about it, that's when almost every other ride line was getting a restander, and I highly doubt that was just like pure coincidence. Like, come on, we don't need to prove that the heals are useful by making almost everything, because that doesn't necessarily guarantee they're useful either, because you might have to drop them beforehand, and then you're wasting more shield, because most likely you're gonna have to drop more cards to make up for that extra 5k you lost. And in the end, that might be the death of you. Like, I can think of many situations where I would have lost off those heals, and I can think of many situations where those heals would have fucked me a lot more than helped me, even against the decks that they do the best in my opinion, which was Bastion and Greedon. And honestly, Greedon wouldn't be stopped by those heals. So, for Melanichel, I like her. She's good. She's normal. And also, I just happen to have the best luck with her in my Dark States decks, which is why all my Dark States decks that aren't Diablos run this as my heal, because it's the one I see the most. So, 4 of. Then we move on to our normal units. Okay, I'm gonna try to stop talking so fast now. I don't know why I'm talking so fast. First up, we have Falcate Performer. Grade 1 boost, Fat K Shield, AK base. Okay, I had an interesting conversation with someone about this card a few days ago, so let's go ahead and get the skill over with first. Auto rear when this unit boosts unit boosts to anything, so Vanguard, Rear Guard. Choose up to one card from your drop. If you do not have the same grade as a card with that in soul, put it to soul. Okay, it's a free soul charge of the grade you need, and considering Drajeweled needs different grade in soul, that's great. Now, the person that brought this up, and I understand his point because I'm 95% sure in the video that I had this conversation with him in, I did bring up the reason why I understand it's good, but why I don't like it, and that's the fact that yes, getting the free grade in soul is great. This is the most useless card in this deck. Not even joking with you, bar none, I could cut this and honestly, all the games I would have won would have still been won. You want to know why? Only 3 games I've played with this deck has this done something. And the best part is, it didn't need to be a part of any of them. It just made me less worried. That's all it did. And to be honest with you, the less worried did not help at all. Because it felt really weird playing the deck consistently and not having to panic about getting to a certain soul count at grade 3 because the deck doesn't like me sometimes. So, you know, like, Falcate's here in case I really need to get the grade 3s in soul, because typically it's just grade 3s that I have a problem with getting in soul now, but, like, I don't know about Falcate, honestly. Like, it's here because I just didn't want to put Brainwash back in. That's the real reason it's here. I was just too lazy to put Brainwash back in, and I consider this like actual Drajeweled support because Michiru uses it, and we all know at that point that's good enough for me. So for a Falcate, like he is good because, like, you know, getting that free soul is nice. So if you're really struggling with getting that soul, go ahead. But like, I don't struggle with it, not at all. And to the person that said, like, it's counterblast issue, boy, I'm 95% sure from, like, what you said and what I said, I run more counterblasts than you do, and I don't run into counterblast issues. So, for a Falcate, it's like, it's good, and I admit it, I just don't need it. If I were to cut anything immediately, the second I get more support, it's this within 5 seconds. Then we have 4 copies of somehow the card that does more than him, and that's Power Gem. Dude, Power Gem was hard carrying this deck. I remember when the first few cards got released for set 7, Power Gem was hard carrying this deck. Power Gem Dragon, grade 1 boost, 5k shield, 8k base. Auto rear when this unit boost if your Soul Blast 4 more at the same time for your Vanguard's cost during this turn. By counterblasting one, get the top 2, choose up to 1 card from them, put it to hand, and put the rest to soul. Count the number of cards for the Soul Blast as 1 cost. So, you don't technically have to add both cards to hand. You can put both cards to soul, which is great because that's a free soul charge 2 if you really need it. I remember one time I actually did do that because I didn't think I would live to my next turn, I didn't think I would live to my next turn regardless, so I set up my soul for the next turn in case I did. Turns out I was right to do so because I top decked a heal and I was able to survive, and then I killed my opponent via the exact number of soul. So anyways, Power Gem's really nice. Getting those soul cards is amazing, not to mention the fact that he could possibly get a PG or an over into your hand. I can think of many times where he's done that to me. And not to mention his art's just cool, and he's always been there when I needed him to. Even when I like really needed that early grade 1 push, he's always been there. Honestly, Power Gem's like the best grade 1 in this deck to me because he actually... He's just there, just by being there. He's you know, that guy you can lend your shoulder on just to do anything. I don't know why, I feel like the way I'm talking so fast makes it sound like I'm high. I'm not high, I'm just like extremely energetic right now, and I don't know why. But for Power Gem, just a good grade 1, I like it, it's just nice. Then we have our 4 PGs and Repelled Malice Dragon. Grade 1 boost, 0 shield, 6k base, contains Sundown Force on deck and auto when it's put on guard circle. Choose one of your units to come into battle, and if your hand is 2 or more cards, choose a card from your hand, discard it. Okay, standard PG, no specified base, what that means is when this is only one of the cards in your hand, we place it on guard circle, you don't have to discard, and that's amazing because that just means, you know, you can be as aggressive as you want as the offense, and in the end, when your opponent makes a massive counterattack on you, the PG can just save you from death. Honestly, I like it. Malice is great. I definitely changed it out after Rescue Hate, and I've had more luck with Malice, so that's amazing. I just like the PG. You can really run any PG that has that skill, but yeah. 4 Malice. Just nice to have that PG for the aggressive, especially when you're me and you go on the aggressive the second you get to grade 2. Then we have our last grade 1, which is the grade 1 of the ride line, that is Jewel Core Dragon. God, I remember set 6 days where I ran this out of 3 of in terms of copies, so there'd be 1 in the ride deck and 2 in the main deck, and I would constantly draw them all by the time I get to grade 2 so I could rush my opponent with 26k beat sticks. Grade 1 boost, 5k shield, 8k base. All known as Horripine by Demonic Stone Dragon Jewel Kneel, calls card to rear guard, and auto rear when this unit attacks or boost. This unit gets +5 until the battle. And at the end of the battle, you may put it to soul, and its effect is mandatory. So great, that free 13k attacker and booster is amazing, not to mention the fact he goes right back to soul. So you get the early game aggressive, and you get that free soul. What's not to like about it? It's just all around fun. I like it. It's definitely like a thing I think a lot of people question me about, because I know some people will most likely call it to the back center to most likely get their like Vanguard guaranteed to hit with that soul charge. Me personally, unless I'm playing where I can't, or either when I know my opponent's gonna sack a trigger, or I just don't have a good hand, I won't call it to back center because I want to get multiple attacks as possible. So Jewel Core, always calling the boy to the front row because he can attack into anything to get that 5k. All around, I like him. I think his skill's amazing. One of them in the ride deck, sadly none in the main deck, but I do love his art, and that is justifiable reason enough for me to run him in the main deck. Hell, that honestly might be the reason I cut Falcon if it's not for Brainwash. So one of Jewel Core. Then we have our new grade 2s. So our grade 2s got buffed. You know what the funny part is too? I like how before in set 6 I said there was a problem with me getting grade 2s into Soul, and then I cut my grade 2s down to add more grade 3s. The weird part is now I struggle to get grade 3s into Soul, or not struggle, but grade 3s are the ones I have more trouble getting into Soul, and grade 2s somehow, despite the fact I cut the amount of them, like granted only by 2, but still, somehow I see them in Soul more easily. Does anyone want to explain to me how that's possible, or are we just going to pretend like that's not bullshit anime logic? Anyways, first up we have Demonic Stone Dragon Metobara, the best grade 2, well, no, I want to say best grade 2 in this deck by far. Grade 2 in set 5k, shield 10k base, honors put on, placed on rear, card boss once you card from my drop, put it to soul, then you have 4 more cards with different grades, he gets plus 10. This card is the definition of, you think it's going to turn out one way and it doesn't. So, normally when I test, happens when I test is this. When I test cards for the first time, if they show up too early, and I play them constantly within the first 3 games, that's an indicator that it's going to be a card that shows up rarely for me, and I'm never going to use it. Metobara is to some extent that. Except Metobara from the get-go has proven that on the occasions where I do call him, he wins me the game because he gets me that exact soul I need. Somehow it's always the perfect situation. I have the just amount of counterblast. I have everything I need to get that plus 10. He's going to get me that last card I need. It's always perfect timing with him. It's never not that he shows up at the wrong time. It's just always when I need him. Not when I want him, sadly, but when I need him, he'll be there. 4 of Metobara, he's just good. He gets me that soul. He most likely will get me that plus 10. He is just amazing, and I love his art. Then we have Demonic Stone Dragon Rock Agore. So we all know this card. I think we all, like anyone who played Drajeweled, really wanted this card to be released. And I'm pretty sure me saying this is the most useful grade 2 in this deck by far straight up triggered like half the audience already. But anyways, I will stand by that statement. I will die on this hill that this is better than this for a reason that I will explain later. So anyways, Agore, auto rear once per turn when this unit attacks a grade 3 or greater unit, if your soul has 4 or more different grades, he gets plus 10. Cool. Free plus 10 just by having the 4 more different grade. Okay, I'll give you that. He's better in that regard. And then auto rear, when you soul blast 4 more cards at the same time for your Vanguard's ability, if your opponent's Vanguards are grade 3 or greater, current blast won't stand this unit. It can only be used if you soul blast 4 more at the same time at once. So, you know, Fair can't abuse it with Bruce and other stuff. I mean, unless you manage to like somehow do some convoluted bullshit. But cool. That restand. Here's why I think this is better than this. This thing's restand is probably the only reason you run it. Tell me right now, to be honest, and I'm not saying the 10k isn't good, but tell me right now, to be honest, if we were to review every point in time that Rockagore was brought up, how many times was the restand the reason that, or like one of the first things that people brought up about it? You want to know how many times I can name? Every time I saw this thing being brought up in context, the first thing someone would mention would be restand. Not the 10k, even though we knew the 10k existed, not anything else, just the restand. This has gotten me soul, even though I rarely play it. I play this just as much, and this is somehow more useful. Granted, this has been on my board longer, but having to do that counterblast just to get that restand, in my opinion, isn't worth it, because it applies that pressure that now I have to do a thing to my opponent's Vanguard. Yes, I can make them waste triggers, and yes, I have, and that feels great, but now I have to attack with this first, instead of, like, playing the way I want to. I like Rockagore's art. I like his skill. He's just not the card for me. He's okay. He's great. That free 10k is nice, and being the force attack. The counter boss isn't the issue either. It's just like the way he plays just is definitely not for me. I prefer this. Like if it's a choice between keeping this in hand and keeping this in hand, I'm gonna keep this in hand 24/7. Like he's still great. If I have an extra copy, I'll play him just to get that restand, but otherwise, not for me. But I can tell a lot of people like him, so Flora for everyone else. Then we have our last grade 2 in the grade 2 of the ride line. That is Demonic Stone Dragon Jewel Neo. Grade 2, intercept 5k shield, 10k base, auto ran or rear when this attack hits a Vanguard, soul charge 1, and then auto when it's rode upon by a unit with Drajeweled in its card name, soul charge another one. Then if you have 3 more cards in different grades and soul, draw a card. That is guaranteed because this counts, and most likely, more than not, your starters in soul, so that counts. So, almost guaranteed draw, and that's amazing. Just a free draw, and not to mention the on hit, always nice for nice pressure. I remember the one time someone smart asked me about this and was like, the on-hit ability is what makes that card. And I didn't believe them because I had been playing the game for a while now, or not the game for a while now. I've been playing the deck for a while at that moment, and I was like, nah, not the case. I want to say the on-hit makes, and this is back when 6 Drajeweled was a thing, and we had this fight to prove me wrong where he guarded the Vanguard. It didn't go through, and I still won. In fact, it's the reason I won. Because I end up sacking a crit that I wouldn't have sacked otherwise because I would have drawn it because of the soul charge would have moved it up by 1 card. Him guarding it was the reason he lost. I'm not saying you should know when the crits will sack, but I find it funny how the moment he lost can all be traced back to that one argument where he was like, yeah, that soul charge makes it the skill. Yeah, sure it does. Sure, yeah, it makes the skill for you. Not to die. So yeah, 1 of Jewel Neo on the ride deck. It's just fun. I like that free draw. It's amazing. And the soul charge always asks for a nice on hit pressure, especially to the smartasses that think it's the card that makes the difference, and it ends up being the death of them because they guarded it. And then move on to our grade 3s. First up, we have 3 copies of Merciless Count Botus. Oh my god, I have such a funny story. So grade 3 to Persona at 13k base. Auto rear when you soul blast 2 or more cards at the same time for this card's cost. He gets +5 for the turn. And then if you soul blasted 3 or more at the same time, card boss 1, choose a card from your drop, put it to soul, show it to one of your opponent's rear, goes the same grade as the card, retire it, count the number of cards soul blast for 1 cost. Great, so you can retire during the battle phase. Obviously I don't want to shine selfishness. I feel like that's a cheap card to use, and I also feel like it's a great on support card, so obviously known to there, but just that 5k is nice, even though I always have it in the back row, and being able to kill an opponent's rear guard is nice. So, my story about Botus is this. I remember me and my friend were playing a game. I forgot what deck he was playing. Oh, wait, it was Youthberg. Here's what happened. So, I had a board, and normally I discard Botus because I just don't need Botus, and I was having a counterboss game, and I was like, I'm going to use Rockagore this game, finally. But when I was about to discard my last Botus to the drop zone, part of me just instinctively was like, wait, no, don't. And this, by the way, was on grade 1 turn, me riding to grade 2. And he was at grade 1 currently. And I was like, no, wait. I don't know why I'm getting this feeling, but I should keep Botus. Botus is going to be the reason I win. So long story short, we get to grade 3. I call Botus. I damage starve myself, and I get to counter, and I have no counter boss left. But during my turn, I nuke his free day, which is used for guarding, and I nuke his back row center. And then on his next turn, because he has no good things to call, he is forced to use Youthberg to reveal 3 cards from the top of his deck, going heal, draw. And we know, I forgot what his draw was going to be, but he was going to, after his draw, he was going to get the over. Basically, he fucked himself. And the whole thing, it only happened from Botus. I even asked him at the end of it, because Botus was the one that killed Friday, and I asked him at the end of it, if I didn't use Botus, would you have used Youthberg to call from the top 3? And he straight up said no. Botus is the reason I won a game, in the stupidest fashion. Because if I didn't use him, he would have triples triggered me, and I wouldn't have been able to kill him on my next turn, and I would have died on his next turn. Botus is amazing, won me a game, boy MVP, 3 of, even if I don't use him that often. Then we have 4 copies of the card I do use very often, that is Demonic Drajeweled Dragon Rostel Galar. Grade 3 turn Persona 13k base, auto rear when this attacks a Vanguard. If your soul blasts 4 more cards at the same time for your cost of your Vanguard's ability this turn, put a hand card to soul, draw a card, choose an opponent's rear guard, murder it, and you count all the soul blasts being paid at once. So that's great. You get a hand card to replace it, so you get selective soul charging. Typically I put the grade 3 the first time around. Afterwards I just start sending whatever I want to soul because I typically have everything I need for the next turn. Draw that card, now I can't say it. Murder an opponent's rear guard. Nice. I just like destroying my opponent's rear guards, getting to minus their power 2 and a critical, making it a lot more difficult on them to guard. And the best part is, does it all for free. It's funny putting this and this in the same column as each other because they proc off in the stupidest way possible. All around, I like him. He's an amazing grade 3, one of my favorites to call on board, and he always shows up in my opening hand, so it's nice to have him. 4 of. And then we have the last card in the deck. It's our main grade 3, who actually just turned English art today. Literally, as I was setting this deck profile up an hour ago, he got his English art, so I was really happy about that. Anyways, Demonic Jewel Dragon, Drajeweled. Or, I don't know why they call him a dragon. He is clearly a wyvern, but whatever. I feel like, in my opinion, wyverns and dragons are very different things, but whatever. Grade 3, turn Persona right. Grade 3, Twin Drive, Persona Ride, 13k base. Active and once per turn, counter boss 1, soul charge 2. Of all the cards soul charge of different grades, you may draw a card. That ability has both failed to go off so many times to the point where it pisses me off, and the fact that it's gone off so many times, and I've loved it because it fixed the problem via the draw. So, in the stupidest way possible, by the way. All around, I like that skill. This is the skill I waste my counterboss on the most. I feel like a lot of people probably don't use that skill because, like, you know, you have the selective soul chargers who do it instead of, like, betting it on chance. And then there's me that's like, I know my chance is better if I believe in it, part of the cards, and then the heart of the cards ends up winning me the game. So, yeah, all I can say for that is, heart of the cards, baby! And then Auto Van, when this unit attacks a Vanguard, Soul Blast 4 with different grades. Choose an opponent's Vanguard, so end of turn, increase or decrease its power to 1. And if your opponent's Vanguards were grade 3 or greater when you did this, you may give him a critical. So that's great, you know, adds that extra bit of pressure to the card, because now if it swings into a Vanguard that has 1, and they're probably at 3 damage if you're playing against me, that's immediately most likely a PG, because your opponent is smart enough to know that there's a chance you will sack a crit, and if you've played against me long enough, then you know I will definitely sack a crit, and you know this will be the end of you. All around, I like him. He adds that necessary pressure to put the opponent into a game-ending position, makes them be forced to guard, and then after a while, he just becomes like instant death. And not to mention that Soul Charger could possibly set you up to make sure you can use his skill and the possible draw around with it. I love Drajeweled. I think his ability is amazing. I think it's nice. 3 of in the main deck, 1 of in the right deck. Also, you don't need Persona Rush for this deck to be good, though it is funny to have the Persona Red active. That's it for the deck. I hope you guys enjoyed. All around, it's fun. I like it. It does good soul charging. It gets good numbers. It drops stuff to 1 crit. Sorry, not 1 crit. Drops stuff to 1 power. Gets an extra crit on Van. Rockagore, in my opinion, being like not the least useful card because that belongs to Falcate. Just still does things like that's the other thing too. I use the cards, and I'm pretty sure every other Drajeweled player would say these cards are the best in the deck, and I rarely use them, and I'm still hard-assing because I just don't know how, honestly. And just, you know, everything just going right, I guess. Honestly, I like the deck. I think it's fun. Sorry I spoke so fast. I have no idea why I spoke so fast. But I'm ending here. I hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, join Discord, follow Twitch. I'll see you all in the next one. Don't forget to stand up your Vanguards.